Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you focus learners here with me today. Because today, we aren't just looking at boring data, we are literally stepping into a crime scene. Our victim? A completely dead induction cooker. You know the story. It was working perfectly fine, boiling water, cooking dinner, and then suddenly, a loud pop, a blown fuse, and total darkness. We're going to go on an investigative journey together. We'll be digging into schematic diagrams, repair logs, and engineering notes to figure out exactly what killed this appliance. Let's jump right in. Okay, let's start by looking at a real-world cry for help. This is from a deeply frustrated user over on the Ask Electronics subreddit. They had a dead induction cooker, found the blown parts, soldered in brand new replacements, turned it on, and bam, it blew up immediately. So why did the obvious fix fail? What on earth did the technician miss? Well, that is exactly the mystery we are going to unravel today. But before we can diagnose what killed our victim, we really need to understand how it functioned when it was alive. So let's move into section 1, inside the induction cooker, the scene of the crime. Right at the very heart of an induction cooker is the LC resonator. It's essentially a circuit that combines an inductor coil and a capacitor. But here's the truly fascinating part. According to engineering design documents from NXP Semiconductors, the cookware itself actually forms part of this resonant circuit. It's like a giant puzzle where your frying pan is the missing piece. And engineers have to carefully tune this whole setup so its resonant frequency operates above 20 kilohertz. Why? Because if it operates below that, the cooker would generate this awful high-pitched squeal that you could actually hear. Nobody wants that while making eggs. Now, to drive that LC resonator, we need the heavy lifter of the circuit. Enter the IGBT, or insulated gate bipolar transistor. Think of it as a high-efficiency electronic switch that turns on and off tens of thousands of times every single second. It is responsible for controlling the massive amount of power going into the heating coil. And because it handles so much electrical stress, the IGBT is definitely going to become our primary suspect in this investigation. To see how our prime suspect fits into the bigger picture, we can trace the path of power on an engineering block diagram. You've got your standard alternating current coming straight from the wall. That AC input gets fed into a bridge rectifier, which converts it into a massive 310 volts of direct current. That 310-volt DC learn then feeds straight into the LC resonator, and the flow of that immense power is controlled by our prime suspect, the IGBT, which in turn takes its orders from the IGBT driver. It's a beautifully orchestrated system, right up until something goes terribly wrong. So when it does go wrong, where do we even start? That brings us to section 2, decoding the error codes, clues from the system. Because before we pull out the soldering irons and multimeters, a good detective listens to the clues the system is already giving us. Most modern cooktops actually have built-in diagnostics. An E0 error, that just means you took the pan off the stove, or maybe the pan is incompatible. Super easy fix. An E1 error means the unit is overheating, which usually happens because the cooling fan vents are clogged up with kitchen grease and dust. But then there's the dreaded E9 code. If you see E9, the appliance is basically screaming at you that there is an IGBT fault. This points directly to a critical component failure, and it means we have no choice but to crack open the case. All right, the case is open. Now we actually have to find the electrical fault. Let's dive into section 3, hunting for short circuits, the detective's methodology, and see how the pros track down a dead short. According to the PCB design experts at Cadence, you really have to follow a strict step-by-step process. First up, a visual scan. You're looking for cracked microchips or taking a sniff for that nasty, acrid smell of burnt silicon. Second, you probe with a multimeter, checking for electrical continuity in places where there absolutely shouldn't be any. Third, if you've got a bit of safe power running, a thermal camera is a game changer for spotting components getting unnaturally hot. And finally, in the really tough cases, you might even have to resort to destructive testing, literally cutting traces on the board to isolate different sections of the circuit. When repair technicians actually probe the main power board of a blown cooker, they almost always find the exact same thing, a dead short. Field notes from veteran techs show that when they place a multimeter across the 3 terminals of the IGBT, it just beeps continuously, 0 ohms of resistance. It is completely fused together on the inside. And very often, the bridge rectifier, that part we mentioned earlier that converts the AC to DC, is also reading as a complete dead short. So hey, we found the blown parts, the IGBT and the bridge rectifier. We just replace them, call it a day, right? Well, let's go back to our frustrated Reddit user and dive into section 4, the usual suspects. Why do new parts keep blowing?
This really is the million-dollar question. You spend your hard-earned money, you carefully solder in a brand new IGBT, you pop in a fresh main fuse, plug it into the wall, and instantly, a bright flash and another blown fuse. What is the unseen killer still lurking on this board?
Well, here is the plot twist. It's a cascading failure. When the IGBT suffers a catastrophic failure, which is often triggered by a voltage surge, its internal gate oxide layer gets totally destroyed. This creates a dead short across all three of its terminals. Now remember that the gate terminal is connected to the delicate little gate driver microchip, while the other terminals are hooked up to that massive 310-volt DC bus. So when the IGBT melts down, it essentially shoots 310 volts straight backward into the low-voltage gate driver IC, instantly destroying it. If you only replace the IGBT, that dead gate driver chip will immediately command your shiny new IGBT to short out all over again. If you look at the physical reality of a typical board layout, you'll see the IGBT securely attached to a large silver heatsink on the power board. And the gate driver IC? It's usually a tiny little chip sitting right nearby. The absolute crucial takeaway for anyone trying to fix this is that you must replace the bridge rectifier, the IGBTs, and the gate driver IC all at the exact same time. If you leave even one damaged piece of the puzzle on the board, it's going to take the whole system down with it in a matter of milliseconds. Okay, let's say you've successfully replaced all the necessary components. How do we test this thing without risking yet another explosion? Let's check out Section 5, Safe Repair and Testing, Solving the Case Safely. I really want you to take this quote to heart. These boards are arguably the most dangerous boards to work on that you'll find. That is not an exaggeration, folks. You are dealing with directly rectified mains voltage. We are talking about hundreds of volts of DC power and massive capacitors that can hold a completely lethal charge long after the unit is unplugged from the wall. Standard safety precautions are simply not enough here. To understand how the veterans handle this safely, compare a standard, dangerous live test with the industry standard safe method. The dangerous way is just plugging your newly repaired board straight into the wall socket. If you missed a short on the board, it's going to draw infinite current, literally vaporize the copper traces, and throw sparks right in your face. But the safe way? Using what's called a dim bulb tester. By wiring an old-school incandescent light bulb in series with the main power line, you artificially limit the current. If the board still has a short, the light bulb just glows brightly, safely absorbing all that energy instead of your circuit board exploding. It's a real game changer. So to wrap up the repair methodology, here is your final checklist. Double check all the resistors and diodes in the gate path. When you install the new IGBT onto the heatsink, you absolutely must apply fresh thermal paste. If you don't, it'll overheat and fail again instantly. Use that 200-watt series dim bulb tester we just talked about, and finally, test the power up without a pan on the glass first. The system should boot up, realize there is no pan, and safely throw that E0 error code. When you see E0, celebrate. That tells you the power stage is alive and well. We've tracked this killer from a simple blown fuse all the way down to a cascading failure across the bridge rectifier, the IGBT, and the gate driver. We've seen how to read the clues and how to test the final fix safely. So I want to leave you with this final thought. Our modern world is just filled to the brim with appliances that break, but behind every single plastic casing is an incredibly cool puzzle waiting to be solved. Do you have the patience, the tools, and most importantly, the safety discipline to become an electronics detective? Or is your next blown cooker destined for the scrap heap? Thank you so much for exploring this with me, and keep on learning.